Flight attendants have an unspoken list, and if you book the aisle seat, there's a good chance your name is on it. Not because you're a bad person, not because you did anything that felt wrong in the moment, but because the aisle seat comes with a set of invisible rules that nobody tells you about when you're checking in, and the crew notices every single time those rules get broken. As someone who has spent years studying cabin crew training manuals, interviewing aviation professionals, and digging through the flight attendant forums where the real conversations happen, I can tell you this: the frustrations are real, they are specific, and most passengers have absolutely no idea they're causing them. Today we're pulling back the curtain on 8 behaviors that aisle seat passengers do, regularly and often innocently, that make flight attendants quietly dread the moment they see you settled in. Some of these will surprise you. At least one of them is going to make you think about your last flight differently. Let's start with the one that happens before the plane even leaves the gate. The moment you sit down in that aisle seat, your body language tells the crew everything, specifically where your legs go. Aisle seat passengers who immediately stretch one leg out into the walkway or angle their knees toward the aisle create a navigation obstacle that persists for the entire flight. Flight attendants pushing a 200-pound service cart down a narrow cabin aisle have roughly 18 inches of clearance on each side. When your knee is in that aisle, that clearance disappears. According to cabin crew training guidelines used by major U.S. and European carriers, aisle obstruction is listed as one of the top causes of in-flight service delays. It sounds minor, it isn't. On a 3-hour flight with 2 service runs, that adds up to dozens of small course corrections, slow due, WNS, and verbal requests to move, all of which land on the flight attendant's plate. You probably didn't even notice you were doing it. That's exactly the problem. The fix is simple. Sit with intention. Feet forward, knees pointed at the seat back in front of you. It costs you nothing and changes the entire dynamic of your row. Now here's something that gets debated in every flight attendant forum I've ever come across: the armrest situation. The unwritten rule of airplane seating is well established among frequent flyers. The middle seat passenger gets both armrests. They're already compressed from both sides with no aisle access and no window view. The armrests are their only territorial claim on that flight. And yet, aisle seat passengers, who have legroom, aisle access, and the ability to lean out, routinely claim the shared armrest as their own within minutes of sitting down. Flight attendants notice this, not because it's their job to police armrests, but because it sets the social temperature of that row for the entire flight. When the middle seat passenger is physically uncomfortable and visibly annoyed, the crew feels it. Tensions in row 24 have a way of becoming the crew's problem by hour 2. Multiple flight attendants writing on professional aviation platforms have specifically cited armrest aggression, their term, not mine, as a consistent source of passenger friction that escalates into call button situations. You're in the aisle seat. You already won. Give the armrest up. But here's where it gets genuinely interesting, because the next behavior on this list isn't about space at all. It's about communication. Aisle seat passengers who stand up without warning their middle seat neighbor are creating a problem that plays out hundreds of times per flight across every aircraft in service. Think about what happens physically. You decide you need to use the restroom. You stand, and the person in the middle seat, who may have been dozing, may have a drink on their tray table, may have their bag partially open at their feet, suddenly has someone's body rising out of the seat next to them with zero notice. A 2024 survey conducted by a major European airline training institute found that interpassenger friction incidents most commonly originated in middle row seating configurations, and that communication failures between aisle and middle seat occupants were a primary trigger. Flight attendants who responded to those incidents consistently reported that a simple heads-up from the aisle passenger would have prevented the escalation entirely. Here's exactly what you do. Before you stand, make brief eye contact or say 2 words, "Excuse me," or even just "getting up." That's it. That small act of acknowledgement changes the physical and emotional experience of everyone in your row. Crews notice passengers who do this. They remember them as easy rows. Now pay attention to this next one, because it directly affects every passenger behind you for the length of the service run. Reclining is a legal seat function. Nobody is debating that. But aisle seat passengers what is who recline and then lean their reclined seat into the aisle during beverage and meal service create a specific kind of obstacle that is different from standard recline. When the seat leans and the passenger's body follows, turning slightly outward, resting an arm on the aisle armrest, effectively extending their physical footprint into the service lane, the cart cannot pass cleanly. FAA cabin service guidelines require flight attendants to maintain clear egress paths during non-emergency service operations. When an aisle seat passenger is partially in that path, crew members face a choice between asking the passenger to adjust, which creates awkwardness, or navigating around them at risk to both the cart and surrounding passengers. Most flight attendants will tell you they've done both, and neither option feels good. During service, sit upright or stay fully contained in your recline. Don't occupy both positions at once. Stop for a second and think about this. When was the last time a flight attendant looked genuinely relieved during beverage service? It happens, and it almost always happens because the aisle seat passengers in a particular row are cooperative. That cooperative behavior has a specific shape, and it centers on the cart interaction. The beverage cart moment is the single highest stress operational point of any cabin service run. The cart is heavy, the aisle is narrow, and the attendant is moving quickly. Aisle seat passengers who see the cart coming and proactively move their elbows off the armrest, sit their tray table upright, and look at the attendant when they approach, rather than continuing to watch their screen and responding 3 seconds late, are making that entire service run marginally faster and meaningfully less stressful. Industry professionals who've spoken on aviation podcasts and in crew forums repeatedly identify aisle seat responsiveness during cart service as a differentiating factor in how smoothly a flight runs for the crew. This is a small behavioral adjustment with outsized impact. Now here's one that most travelers don't even recognize as a problem because it happens before most passengers are paying attention. During boarding, aisle seat passengers who stop in their row to hoist heavy bags into the overhead bin without first letting the passengers behind them pass create a boarding blockage that can delay overall departure. Gate agents and crew members have spoken about this extensively on aviation blogs and professional forums. One American Airlines flight attendant, writing anonymously in a 2025 aviation industry publication, described aisle stow blocking as the single most preventable boarding delay we see every single flight. The solution: if you're in an aisle seat and you need time to stow your bag, step fully into your row, let the stream of passengers behind you continue moving, and then handle your overhead situation. 30 seconds of patience during boarding prevents a cascading delay that affects the entire aircraft. This next one is going to sting a little for some of you, and that's fine, because it's worth knowing. Aisle seat passengers press 2. He call button more frequently than any other seating position, and a disproportionate number of those calls, according to flight crew accounts compiled by aviation researcher and author Christine Negroni in her analyses of cabin behavior, are for items the passenger could have obtained by simply walking to the galley. A pillow, a cup of water, an extra napkin. Flight attendants are not wait staff. They are safety professionals who happen to provide service. The call button exists for genuine needs, medical concerns, urgent requests, situations that require crew attention. When it gets used as a room service bell by passengers who have full mobility and a galley 12 rows away, it pulls crew attention from passengers who may have real needs. If you're in an aisle seat and you want something small, use the gift your seating position gives you. Stand up and walk to the galley. Crew members have said publicly that passengers who do this are immediately recognized as considerate, and that recognition matters for how the rest of your flight goes. And we've saved the most serious one for last because this one isn't about comfort or courtesy. It's about safety. Aisle seat passengers are part of the emergency evacuation chain. In the event of an emergency landing, FAA regulations require that cabin evacuation of a full aircraft be completed within 90 seconds. Aisle seat passengers are the individuals who, in most evacuation scenarios, either facilitate or obstruct that process. Flight attendants are trained to rely on aisle seat occupants to move quickly, help open exit rows if applicable, and avoid becoming bottlenecks. Here's what most travelers never think about. Your aisle seat comes with an implicit responsibility. Before your flight, locate the nearest 2 exits. Know whether you're in front of or behind them. Understand that in an actual emergency, your hesitation in that aisle costs everyone behind you. FAA emergency training documentation, publicly available through the agency's Aviation Safety Library, confirms that passenger preparedness, specifically aisle and exit row passenger awareness, is a significant variable in evacuation outcome modeling. You are not just a passenger in that seat, you are a position in a safety system. Here's the bottom line. The aisle seat is a genuinely great seat. More legroom, easy access, freedom of movement. But it comes with a set of responsibilities that the airlines don't print on your boarding pass. The crew sees all of it. The legs in the aisle, the claimed armrest, the call button habits, the cart behavior, the boarding block. They see it, they remember it, and it shapes their experience of every flight they work. You now know what the overwhelming majority of aisle seat passengers never find out. That awareness, those small, specific adjustments, is the difference between being the passenger a crew dreads and being the passenger they quietly appreciate. These crew experiences aren't going away. If anything, as flights get fuller and service windows get tighter, the behaviors that create friction become more visible, not less. If this gave odds, if you a new way of thinking about your next flight, drop a comment with whichever behavior surprised you most. And if you want more insider perspectives on how the aviation system actually works, the parts they don't announce over the intercom, make sure you're subscribed.